we're spirit souls. That is for us the important thing. Whether it's body, male body, dog body, cat body, elephant body, everybody was trying to remember and celebrate the soul. And but since it is the woman's whatever, I was thinking we have so many wonderful women in our history, our original history, and our Bible talk, sometimes it's a Mitra. And this is so I would like to speak about my dear, dearly beloved, and departed god sister, Yamuna Devi. So, and how many of you have read her book? A few of you, yeah. So, but I'm going to speak about her from the point of view of those who knew her. So there's the book, and then there's, the person. And this was coming from after her departure. So this was part of like some tributes. You know how it is, it's like somebody goes and suddenly, it's just like recently, kind of a Swami left, but it was just, for like, stuff was just flying. There was a lot of nectar finding out about her, and just realizing, like I didn't realize that her daughter Priya had been closely connected with it because he had gone to Czech Republic at a time when it was like falling apart due to departure of the leader, and he saved the whole yatra, he saved their spiritual lives, and he did a similar thing in Spain, and he was in India, he was a temple president in Vrindavan. You think that's a piece of cake? Somebody tried to assassinate him. He was in the tree. That's how they shot him with a bullet. And nothing about him. It was all, it was, all kinds of intrigues everywhere in India. Is really good at it. So anyway, he really had given his life to serve. He came from a very educated family. He was also educated, but then he decided this was the education, spiritual education that he wanted to take up and give his life to. Worthy to celebrate such a person. So Yamuna Devi was one of the most influential devotees among the fledgling beginning years in ISKCON. And she was among the handful of us who first established many of the ISKCON first. Those who came later joined, like all of you, everything's kind of already established. It's not that there's nothing left to do, by the way, but the basics are there. You don't have to look for a place to sleep. You don't have to wonder if you'll even have a place to sleep. You know you will. But she did so many fantastic things. Like she was the one who established, who was behind the carving of Krishna Balaram, Radha Shamsundar, and the Chota Utsava royalties in Vrindavan. He was the one behind that. All carved under her expert guidance. And then, of course, the big gong, the Vindham prayers, all around the world she celebrated daily. We can hear her. But to speak of her most transcendental Srimad Bhagavatam like cookbook. Are you familiar with that one? Lord Krishna's Cuisine? You don't know that? Oh my God. No, this is a serious opera. I'm actually saying this seriously. Some things must be known. I'll make a few words about this later. But so I'm going to be speaking a little bit from the words of others, and I'll have my little points at the end. But this is from Rasamrita, who is the daughter of Vishaka and Yadavar. I think maybe you know that. Yadavar, Vishaka. And Vishaka is now the president of Bhaktivinoda Manor, And Yadavar is embarking on a good project to get all the film he took of Prabhupada digitalized, so it won't be lost, So her daughter, her firstborn daughter, was born was Rasamrita. So she said, my husband and son and I spent most of 2010 in Sharonagiri, Canada. So Sharonagiri, like River Valley is a farm community, but Sharonagiri is beyond farms. It's way out in like the mountainous areas of British Vancouver. I mean, you don't have neighbors like the neighbors are, but I mean, any neighbor besides the devotee neighbors in the community, even then they're 2 to 3 or 4 miles away. But the nearest town is a good 25, 30 miles away. And the nearest city is a good 4 hour plus, so they were really isolated there. So she and her husband went there, and the large reason that they went there, they were inspired to go, was to take advantage of the incredible Sangha, devotional Sangha of Jamuna and her dear friend Dina Tarna. They had moved there themselves at one point. They built their own home out of straw bale, just these 2 ladies. So she was explaining every morning they had a full morning program in their home, and it was open to anyone in the community. And they loved to share Krishna consciousness with everybody, especially the younger brothers. So Jamuna was holding cooking classes, Didi sewing classes, Didi worship classes, and much more, specifically for the young people, specifically for the young ladies, but young people too. She just showered the love and affection on them. And she shared with them her deep love of devotional service. And then every summer there was a special treat. At their home, they would have an evening program, and it was consisted of the bhajans of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So they would not only just sing the bhajans, but they would study them. So when they sang them, they were coming from a deep place in the heart. It was, she said, these bhajans were from another realm. So she says she was the ocean of devotion and an ocean of inspiration for people that knew her and whoever simply heard of her. And this was from her sister. Now her sister was Janaki Devi Dasi, who was the first initiated disciple, lady disciple. So she and Janaki is a very free-flowing spirit and expressive person. She said, my dear friends, because I was collecting little tributes to share with other devotees. My dear friends, please hold on to my gratitude and love for all of you and all that you do, and continue to do honoring Jamuna. So I must tell you, it's been and continues to be very difficult not to physically hold Jamuna's beautiful hand and look one more time at her exquisite glow. From the moment she entered Srila Prabhupada's apartment on 26th Second Avenue, introductions were made, and Prabhupada said, that time Swamiji said, oh, so nice, your sister has come for your wedding to help with the feast. And she could? Oh, yes. So she will assist me, not Srila Prabhupada. So Janaki said this feast was extraordinary. Mukunda, who she got married to, recalls almost all the preparations. But the biggest, most important part, of course, was our wedding. And equally as important, if not more so, was Jamuna's instant attraction to Prabhupada. For a woman who was quite disciplined in her actions and emotions, to just fall into his purview, into his she writes, his heavenly charm so rapidly, must have been preordained. So when she first met them, the devotees were having prasadam, so when she met all the devotees, and Prabhupada downstairs. So they're eating, sitting on the floor, and we didn't even use paper plates. They would take pieces of wax paper. You probably heard this. You imagine how efficient wax paper isn't as a plate. So they were, but actually had some used plates. They had some, plates at that point. So everything was going around, and we were heavily into a macrobiotic diet, which meant you did not eat any sugar, you didn't eat any fruit, no eggplants, no potatoes. And we were on the number 7. They went in numbers, stages. We were at the top stage. Number 7 meant brown rice only. So, all of what was being prepared was like, major diet apparatus, you were like an macrobiotic. And at the end of it, so Prabhupada says, here, and she's going to leave. And Prabhupada says, here, take it. And it was the Lodgemans are not the most, really down, and he's handed this big fat glistening ball of, and she knew it was sugar water. Take. And she said, oh, it's forces, take it and eat it. She couldn't say to her Prabhupada, but she was leaving thinking, I'll never eat with these people again. So anyway, for my personal consolation is that in the months while she was in Florida, so June and her last, she passed her Florida, she moved down to Florida. I was able to call her weekly or more because at Sharanagati, it's like Vrindavan, but worse. Electricity is all self-generated. And, if you're going to have a phone at all, you don't even have landlines there. So you try to depend on the little weak signal that may bounce through the valley once in a while through your cell phone. So, she couldn't talk so much. So now she's in Florida. I was able to call her weekly or more, and she was so energized and encouraged as to the seeming wellness of her body as she'd gone through some heavy stuff. In fact, it was so heavy, I had taken up a secret collection to get her in Bhaktivinoda to hospital because it was clear things were not doing well with the body. So she was having those phone calls. What was also glorious, here's her sister again, was her sense of humor. We could go into fits of laughter, so the tears were running down our legs. I believe her laughter has moved into an eternal state of celestial joy. No doubt she still travels with her knife, spices, and pots. And then this other was from again a friend of Janaki. They were roommates. There are some dreams that I believe are more than just imagination, and this is one of them. I'm in a crowd of people all sitting around on the floor, gathered around Prabhupada, listening to his teachings. He suddenly stands and says, there's one here that is my true disciple. Everybody in the crowd was hushed. They look around, who could it be? Prabhupada pointed at Yamuna. My daughter, it is you. So that was Barb, her name was Barb, that was hers. And this is in any particular order. So Lakshmi Modi has written a very lovely poem. It's a little lengthy, so I'll just read the last part. The title was, Oh, Yamuna Devi. You are living still and sound, chanting Govindam the whole world round. We share the gems that still abound, taking wisdom from your words. Swami has his cook back, someone said, so why lament there is no end? And you may know that she does have a samadhi in the Gosala area. Have anybody who said that? Yeah. I don't have time to get into that story, that's a whole class. But here is a letter. Well, it was first a conversation, and he noted it to me, a letter from Srila Giridhara Swami. To understand her means to understand more about Srila Prabhupada by his/her mission and his lords. She was a mentor, guide, and friend to many of us. In her passing, our appreciation for and understanding of her may increase, just as people's appreciation for and understanding of Srila Prabhupada is increasing. I feel it will be part of our purification individually and collectively to serve her in the separation and service to Srila Prabhupada by tactfully and tastefully making her association and mercy available in various tangible ways. And of course, from that we understood a samadhi. And she is so far the first one of Prabhupada's female disciples to have a samadhi. And it was attended when the ceremony was attended, hundreds of god brothers and sisters attended. So Yamuna's transcendental rendering of the Govindam prayers continues as a firmly established ISKCON tradition and has been heard by millions over the last decades. Let us hope that it continues to inspire hundreds of millions more for the millennia to come. As long as it is played, Yamuna Devi Dasi remains firmly in our midst and in our hearts. So then, this is Vyasaki. He was saying last December 2010, so this right now is in 2011. So last December 2010, I attended a conference on cosmology at one of the premier science campuses in Bangalore. The organizer of the conference, Dr. D.N. Acharya, an elderly white-haired Sri Vaishnava from Sri Rangam, when he saw me for the first time, recognized that I must be from ISKCON. He was delighted to know I was a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, whom he began to profusely glorify. And he really loved the Govindam prayers, which gave him a thrill every time he heard it. And he began to sing it, but he was sad because he could not get a copy of it anywhere. And could I please get him one? So even senior members of other Vaishnava Sampradayas were appreciated and inspired by Yamuna. This is a little bit more from Vyasaki. I was fortunate to meet Yamuna several times. Perhaps you've seen the video of her singing in London in 1994. Yamuna approached me and asked if I would play harmonium for her when she sang. And immediately I said yes and suggested that Ravi play Mridanga, and she agreed. We got ready to play, and she began to sing, and all of a sudden it was just like playing a harmonium for Srila Prabhupada. She was so deep and sincere that I knew the harmonium had to be kept simple in the background, because he's kind of like a very flamboyant, I knew it had to be. So she turned to look at me, and she saw I was practically in awe. So she gave me a smile to help me relax. After her singing, we relaxed and spoke naturally again. I also interviewed her for my book, Radha Damodar Vilas. Anybody read this book by Vyasaki? Yeah, so we've got two people. Look it up, it's a really good read, Radha Damodar Vilas. And we had a wonderful time going over the early days of the movement. Well, Krishna Maharaj once confided to me that Prabhupada commented to him back in 1970. Actually, he's telling a story from 1970, but even before that, Prabhupada said Yamuna was already at the stage of Bhava Bhakti. When he first said it, it was in San Francisco around 68 before we went to UK. We had no clue really what is this Bhava Bhakti. And Prabhupada said it in a very understated way. So it's no doubt she was one of the more advanced devotees in the movement. And then there was Trivikram Swami. If anybody's been to Orlando, you might have met Trivikram Swami. So he was with us in early London days. So there was an exchange I remember between Srila Prabhupada and Yamuna, and I was impressed by. We were living at John Lennon's estate outside of London in the fall of 1969. Yamuna Devi had been sick and hadn't seen Srila Prabhupada for a few days. So we were with Srila Prabhupada, it's like on a walk. He was, when she saw him from across the way, and she spontaneously called out, Srila Prabhupada, I love you so much. We were all a little shocked by this, but Srila Prabhupada just raised his head and responded, I know. I know. I'm sorry. So here's a little ode to the mentioned cookbook. So in 1986, Yamuna approached me, this is from Rameshwar for the BBT at the time, about having the BBT fund expenses for her to write the ultimate cookbook. So he was really excited, and he immediately agreed. And he said it was one of the last projects I funded for the BBT. And that year she came to stay in New Florida to launch the project. So she was working with 3 other god sisters, Vishaka, Kalika, and Tuesday, and they were helping her. And they had set up a nice area for her to write when you do a cookbook, you do have to do a lot of test batches, test cooking, you know. So she would every day prepare a different recipe, working until she thought it was perfect. And like whatever it's striving, whatever devotional skills she had before, she was determined to take them to a new level of excellence. You know, she was a living example of being a perfectionist for Krishna. And I'll just say that was an understatement. In addition to the repeated trials and tests she went through each, she put through each preparation, she decided that somebody from outside the immediate group would have to also taste the preparations that she was offering to Prabhupada and Krishna. And she selected Rameshwar to be the official taster of her recipes. So every afternoon at lunchtime, she speaks explaining this. These amazing monarchies would come to my quarters with a dazzling plate of prasadam, artfully arranged so that the visually astonishing presentation, the extraordinary aromas, the coloring, the texture, the scientific combining of flavors and spices, and the heavenly taste. Amazing description. Transported me every single day outside of this earthly plane of existence. And she delighted in, just like explaining all the steps in the process, the art of devotional cooking, and she described how she organized her kitchen and the essential role that cleanliness played throughout the entire culinary endeavor. And for Jamuna, and I can attest to this, nothing less than absolute cleanliness was acceptable. If the room was being cleaned, she would, and if the person who was cleaning the room came over and it was done, she put on a pair of gloves and run her hand over the top of the doorways on the shelves, That's old school clean. So everything had a place, in her kitchen, perfectly arranged, so she could just easily know the spices, the pots, the plates, so everything in an area she could just like reach it. And on top of that, the kitchen was saturated with tapes of Srila Prabhupada chanting, And he was saying that this standard of pure goodness and cleanliness surpassed anything any of us had previously experienced in any of the temple kitchens or temple altar. She aspired to be a living example of purity. So they say, so this amazing meal went on for months. And then Jamuna thought that she needed to be in a more pastoral, rustic environment to be more absorbed in the good of her Dhamma so that she could really, get into the exact meaning of this book. It was Lord Krishna's cuisine, the art of Indian vegetarian cooking. So they supported that, So he winds up by saying, as devotees, we all have had ecstatic, almost mystical experiences while honoring prasad. Can everybody agree to that? You've had some, I'm sure almost everybody in this room can tell a prasad story. And he says, words fail me as I try it, although he's been pretty good at words. Words fail me as I try to describe this experience for myself. All I can say, the memory and taste of the prasadam that Yamuna Devi lovingly prepared and offered her those months in 1986 remain with me every day of my life, as fresh as it was just this very afternoon. I feel blessed to call Yamuna Devi my dear god sister, your unworthy servant, Rameshwar. So I was last month BBC meeting in Mayapur, Rameshwar was there as part of the BBT thing. I said, I still remembering Yamuna's prasadam from 1986. And he looks at me and he goes, I can never forget. So this is from, I think some of you know HG Prabhu from, he's been up there, and I think he's been here too. My wife, Jita Rita, and I became close to Yamuna and Dinatari when they decided to move to Sharanagati. So they live in Florida, but they made a shift, in Sharanagati part-time living. And they had served in Vancouver temple sometimes, so they had a lot of friends there. It wasn't too out of the world. And soon after arriving, they discovered the Vanavihari ashram. That's the Buddhist deity's Vanavihari. A straw bale house that's plastered in adobe, covered with a green metal roof. It was like on a little hilltop, and it overlooked the 5-mile-long Sharanagati Valley. And that's where Yamuna and Divatarni, the servants of Vanavihari, lived. Actually, Srila Prabhupada had instructed them in 1970 to live simply like a widow's ashram. And then at that point, been worshiping their lordships for over 30 years. This was like 2011, I think. So he was describing how he found an extraordinary degree of thoughtful devotional craftsmanship because the two of them made this house. It was stained glass windows, built-in bookshelves, an exquisite altar with a large stained glass backdrop that was featuring the gopis of Vrindavan, a brilliantly designed kitchen and wood stove that heated the entire ashram, and all kinds of eco-friendly ingenious systems for living off the grid. So after admiring the gorgeous stained glass, I asked Yamuna, who made them? Yamuna Devi, he replied, in a curt tone that indicated nothing more was to be said on the topic. She did not like discussing about herself, and she would always do like refer to herself as Yamuna Devi. Oh, she this or she that. Anyway, they would have a beautiful morning program, and then after there was a Bhagavatam class, which they would take turns reading. So sometimes read several verses, those who were there would read together, and then they would have some some interactive discussion. And it was always facilitated nicely by Dina, and Yamuna would stir the discussion with thoughtful questions, steering the topic from the day's verses and purports into a variety of fascinating directions. And during the class, she anxiously made sure that everyone present spoke up and took part in the discussion. And Yamuna would add special little memories of Srila Prabhupada. So one of those memories was it was on Balaram's insurance day. She told how she came into Srila Prabhupada's room, not quite sure where this was, but probably it was Vrindavan. And she found him standing before a painting of Balaram killing a demon. And he was looking at that, and with his own transcendental body, he was imitating the pose struck by Krishna when he was like doing away with the demon. Not by Krishna, by Balaram. You know that painting. So Prabhupada was like, he was just by himself there, and she came in and he was like, and then she said that, she told about, once she was preparing for a festival in London, and she told George Harrison to invite him. And she mentioned that a particular rice pudding dish, sweet rice, that he loved was on the menu. So she said, shall I set a plate for you? And he replied, you better set two. Then she was describing where how we recorded the Radhakrishna Temple album, which all the do it because they were up so late, everybody was kind of falling asleep here and there. And she was sitting in the corner with a harmonium, and she started just softly chanting, but she got the words that like her. So she said that during the early and difficult days of London, she had learned that bhajan by listening to it over and over and over again. I wrote recording, but Prabhupada singing because we didn't have songbooks yet. So she sang that bhajan, by herself with a harmonium. But what she didn't know was that George was recording her. And much to her shock, he insisted on including it in the album, the Radhakrishna Temple album. So, he overdubbed it in his hand clapping, so he put that in there. But later it was pointed out that the title, they puts in it's like, wait a minute, is there anyway, Prabhupada said, it's all right, you can fix it later. So, and then the Sharanagati, they'd have a Rath Yatra. And so, it's so isolated. How many people are going to be there? Probably not so many, just the residents to share an oddity. Right before the Rath Yatra one day, she took her little bullhorn thing. She made an introductory speech to the devotees standing in front of the cart, and she was pointing to the majestic forest-covered hills on each side of the valley. She goes, "There's more living entities here to be blessed by the holy name than there are in New York City, Rath Yatra." So, and this part is for myself. So it was Thursday morning, December 22nd, 2011, when a small group of friends and associates of Her Grace Illuminated gathered together to offer the last respects before placing her mortal remains into the fire. And of course, we've gone through that very recently here. So devotees from Alatra had gathered together trying to read water, Mahatulsi leaves, mandarins, garlands, chandan, and other sacred items. And Sri Rupa Devyas had taken the lead in securing a funeral home that was amicable to our simple request to prepare the body for its brief but final journey into the furnace, as well as being there to assist Dina, who was suddenly bereft of her dearmost associate in devotional service. On Thursday morning, Dina, Shruti, Nirmala, her husband Devarshi, sister Abdulaki were present along with myself, Kartamaji, affectionately known as Kar, who was very dear to Jamuna, and his wife Radha, and their small son Dhanasham and Hari Bhaktadas. 10 breaking hearts who couldn't imagine being anywhere else at that moment, yet wished that we were really not there for the purpose at hand. In addition to the physical attendees, Jani Devi, whose biological sister and god sister, was present along with her friend Barb via my iPhone, as they were over, she was able to travel. So they were, over on the other side of the world in Portland, Oregon. So myself, Shruti, and Nirmala arrived first, offering frustrated obeisances to her memory and her body, which was atop this kind of slim gurney on wheels covered by, at first it was white sheets and a blanket from the funeral home. So we were going to prepare a blissful body for cremation. And it was really surreal and kind of painfully blissful to do this service. First, only trying to read her, water was sprinkled. We said, okay, this is the final shower. Her trademark beige outfit was put over her now cast aside form. And then I got my service was quite a tilak. And I was almost expecting her to wake up from a slumber and say, "What in the world are you doing?" She knew I didn't do this. Sometimes she just had, "What in the world is going on here?" But of course, I just kind of felt like I wouldn't have been surprised. What in the world are you doing? But of course, that didn't happen. Meditation put around her neck, the sacred element from the Shrinkagade from Mayapura was applied. Maha flower garlands, big and small, were dropped around her form, including one that was small and that was around her left ear. There was a kavichar from Mayapura. And each one of us, we were just fully immersed in this final personal service. And finally, a Harinam chakra from Alacha was put around her head. And Rangavati had been told to bring a large Buick, and she brought a gigantic Buick. It was like the mother of all Buicks. It was at least as fat, it was huge. And it was placed on her belly, and then the others were called for, other devotees were called in now for a simple two-part circumambulation, accompanied by kirtan, and rose petals were offered. And Radha put a big pink hibiscus flower, which he probably took from the local shrubbery. So then the funeral people arrived, the funeral home man, they arrived to prepare to transport the body from that little space we were in the corner of a larger room to the actual furnace. So the size of the cardboard container that was her final situation, we pulled up. And then a royal blue plush blanket was fitted corners, was placed over the body. And I'm thinking, why are they covering the body up like this? And then we started, going out the door. So it turned out the furnace was in this other building, and you had to go out. And as soon as we went through the door, from that time, it was very dim in there, very dimly lit. And suddenly we're outside and broad daylight, and we're just like, there was cars going by, people walking by. So then I understood why her blanket was over her. But then we walked a few yards to the other building and reached the furnace area, and the blanket was removed. Now we were together again, and she was kind of pushed over into another narrow plank atop a mechanism that would be raised up to allow the body to be entered into the fire. So then this gigantic Buick was set alight by our Uncle Body. We were chanting, we offered roses again, and we all were just pushing the body in the fire pit, just getting a last glimpse before the doors closed. And then Nirmala was chanting Bhagavad Gita, I was chanting Sri Upanishad, and Shri Rupa came in, and there's these like big buttons on, and she pushed the on button, the green on button, which triggered this big heavy metal sound like a roaring bulldozer as the heater, the furnace started to heat up and do its thing. It has to get up to a certain degree, the temperature. So we stood, we chanted for another hour. I was leading us in the early day soulful tunes with Haribhakta accompanying on the Daiva. And then as we were chanting, after some time, without thinking, without realizing, our feet were moving, our feet were dancing, we were just there together. Our hands were alternately clapping, raising high, or grasping the person next to us. There's cries of Gora, 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 Goranga, Ribo, were just coming out of our mouths. And then the kirtan ended, and Dina recited the pranams. We joined hands for kind of that last time, still in front of the furnace, and we just joined hands and went around sharing what it was like. What was it about Jamuna that stood out in our lives for each one? And then offered heartfelt obeisances, Venchikalpa. We went back to Yamuna Dina's ashram, Shri Radhakanda Vihari Seva ashram. It was a nice apartment overlooking the ocean. For some magical prasadam. It was prepared by Sri Rupa, assisted by Radha and others, and we all agreed Jamuna would have approved of this offering. It was nice. Then finally, there was another bhajan by Narottam Das, followed by Hey Vaishnava Tagore and Kirtan. And we were just feeling the presence of someone who was conspicuous by her absence. And we were all missing and longing for that person. And then we walked, we talked a little bit more about maybe coming together next fall in Mayapur and Vrindavan to continue with her kirtan program, bringing her ashes home. The ashes came home, but the kirtan program, it's a little hard to get a lot of people to India. So afterwards, we took a sunset walk along the beach, chanting quietly, remembering, rejoicing, lamenting. I just looked, and there was this little baby shark, and it came up. It was like following us along the line of the water was like very shallow. So it was maybe about this big, the shark following along. But regarding her departure, Jamuna did it her way, quietly just, slipping out the back door when no one expected us, avoiding any undue fanfare. She died, it was, we don't know the exact time, before 6 o'clock, because that's when Dina went in, was, to check on her and say, usually she would have already been up and about, but she wasn't, so she went to look, and she was on the bed with her hand in her bead bag. And then Dina realized that she wasn't in, the hand was in the bead bag, but she wasn't in the body. So, Mondakini, a dear god sister, some of you may know her or know about her. She's like the godmother of the Russian Yatra. She's also French, so she's, the Sakdan, the main and the Sak, name of the hat. So the hand in the bag indicates a thief that the dear Krishna had come to steal Jamuna and caught her with the hand in the bag. And one thing about she picked up Srila Prabhupada's sense of urgency with regards to practicing and spreading Krishna consciousness. It was always a sense of urgency, and many of us, we picked up on that, and it was a driving force for us, and Jamuna definitely. And she was really concerned that this sense of urgency be imparted to all devotees. She felt acute concern for Srila Prabhupada's mission. And as was noted in this letter to me, that was just right before we departure, we had planned to get together for the disappearance day of Srila Siddhanta, when there was this exchange. She said to me, we want to see how the reflections of our preaching and personal example reflect through the Prabhupada's stance, moving an example. Question arises, what is this come's future, and how will our second and third and fourth, etc. generations live and know pure Gaudiya Vaishnavism today and down the line? Of course, we can go anywhere to preach, but do we not need to make it clear the difference between the Hare Krishnas and the others? What to speak of the innocent public? If we widely associate with peacenik career Kirtandis, the voices of impersonalism. So she was very concerned about keeping the mood of Srila Prabhupada and his teachings alive among the devotees, so that our preaching would continue to be effective. She arrived on the scene as an eager searcher. She found what she was looking for, and she never looked back. Even the day we drive. What time do they open up?
8:25.
Oh, I mean, I could say a few more things, but then I thought it would be nice to have a little kirtan, and maybe everyone Priya would be that kirtan because so like Jamuna was initiated on March 9th, 67, and Murudas, mostly of the name Jamuna and Murudas, was Joan and Roger. And the next day he buried them. And you know how they have the fire ceremony? Well, you know, nobody really had any extra money in those days. So instead of buying butter, she bought margarine for the time. I mean, when I got initiated in marriage, I had this list given to me, right, which was passed on to her, but like it said 5 pounds of butter. And I thought, what is this for? And this person was from New York, so he was slightly senior, like, you know, 3-minute seniors, what 5 pounds of butter? And he goes, we're going to put it we're going to put it in the fire. And in my infinite stupid American girl wisdom, I go, what a waste. And so we went to a dairy. We did this dairy in Chandra and I, and we asked them if they would donate some butter. And we happened to mention we weren't going to be eating it. And so they gave us 5 pounds of butter that we had to say we're not going to eat it because it touched some, you know, the equipment, which actually, you know, technically you could eat it, but as far as the laws and everything goes, so we got that 5 pounds of butter that way, but they didn't have the same luck, so they used margarine. So Prabhupada's trying to get the fire to start, sputtering. Then he's finally goes, this marriage is going to be off to a slow start. Rita was remembering how when he'd go on his daily morning walks, anyone could go with him. So she was walking with him one morning. She said, Swamiji, do you think sometime you can allow us to go to Vrindavan with you? And he turned around and looked at her and said, yes, I will take you to Vrindavan one day, and I will show you Vrindavan on foot. The Jew said, I thought that was the most hopeful thing I'd ever heard in my entire life. And I was just waiting for that day to come. So in May, they got married initiated in June. In May, Yumuna and Gurudas received their first letter from Swamiji from New York. I have a very good appreciation for both of you, Gurudas and Yumuna. You are two good souls, and you have combined. Live peacefully, chant Hare Krishna, and be happy in your life. The next month, in June, Prabhupada Swamiji suffered a stroke and asked all of his disciples to pray to Lord Krishna. My dear Lord, my spiritual master has not yet completed his work. Please protect him. So in the little Asbury temple, maybe some of you seen that place in 20, on Frederick Street, Yumuna and the other devotees stayed up all night chanting. And later, word was received in the next morning. Due to your sincere and ardent prayer, Krishna has saved my life. So to repeat his recuperation, he returned to India and from Vrindavan he wrote to Gurudas, regarding Yamuna, your wife, I have a very great regard because she's a very sincere girl. I'm sure you should feel fortunate to have such a wife. Please offer my blessings to her and always cooperate with your wife in the service of the Lord. You will be happy eternally. I don't think I need to point out who he was saying, cooperate with your wife. Anyway, in July of 67, we had the first Rath Yatra, and it was reported Prabhupada was sick, he couldn't attend it. So it was on the back of a flatbed truck, and Yumuna was on the part, playing harmonium and singing over loudspeakers. And at that point, Jagannath was just wearing his painted clothes, there weren't like clothes for him. So the next year in 68, Prabhupada said, so you have to dress Jagannath. And he had given the red silk to Yamuna. He said it's for the deities, but he hadn't said more than that at that point. So now he said, you use this, and he drew a little picture how the outfit should look. So Yamuna and Harsharani volunteered to make the first outfit that Lord Jagannath wore in San Francisco. So in 1968, Rath Yatra, for the first time, they were actually like a red satin, and they had beautiful garlands and beautiful red turbans. So then the whole London epic came, and it was, some struggling. But Yumuna remembers, but we didn't find a place we could like take 6 people and a baby, so we were just like scattered around and around, and didn't have the cell phones. They didn't have the capacity to communicate, and not everybody even had a landline in those days. So you go to a corner, put some tents in. Yumuna was remembering, I had to move to a Jamaican ghetto, the top floor of one of the buildings. It was awful. Day after day, I would sit and listen to a tape of Swamiji singing. It was a beautiful tape. He had just done it in Los Angeles, and I would pray, please come, please come. And then he wrote to Yumuna, your appreciation of Srimad Bhagavad Gita is so nice, and your appreciation of teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Please, the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, please continue to study and preach in this way to all you meet. I'm very happy to learn that you're going to various homes and lecture halls and holding kirtan and delivering lectures on the transcendental literatures. It's very nice, and if you continue in this way, gradually so many people will be attracted, and our London Center will soon be successful. We were staying with the John Lennon's estate to rehearse Park, and Prabhupada had a little apartment there, and he would sometimes sing bhajans with his harmonium, and Yamuna would sit outside his door she never, she wasn't making any noise, or she was just sitting at the door. And one time, Prabhupada, he went, so, Jamuna, what are you doing here? And she goes, I'm listening. Would you like to come in? And so then she was sitting with Prabhupada, and I think he had her play Kartalsers. And afterwards, he asked her, what was your favorite bhajan? And he said this one, and it was bhajan, and then he asked him, what was your favorite bhajan? And I can't remember what it was. Anyway, this sweet, very personal exchange. Jamuna played the Kartals, and Krishna played the Kartal, Jamuna played Mridanga. Prabhupada said, you played said, you want to come in and listen? Yes, very much. You play drum, and I'll play the harmonium, and Krishna can play Kartals. So then, for several mornings, she actually went, he was singing the prayer by Haridas Narottam Das Thakur, and Prabhupada was explaining this meeting, Hari Bifale. Oh Lord, I have wasted my life, although I've taken a rare human birth. Like a miser, I have not served Radha and Krishna, and I have knowingly drank poison. So then the Prabhupada said, Jamuna Prabhu, because by the way, just to let you all know, he did call us all Prabhu as he instructed us to call each other. Jamuna Prabhu, what is your favorite prayer? And she said, I like Shastasika prayer, it's very nice. That is very nice. And then she asked Prabhupada, what was your favorite prayer? And he said, this prayer, Hari Bifale. So, very sweet type of intimate pastimes, but never not respectful. Not, sometimes people, they became too familiar, but that was never the case. One other, but Prabhupada was always, encouraging her to train newcomers in Krishna consciousness. And he wrote one, you're a very nice girl, and I have full faith in you, and I wish that you can develop this line of service with the society. And then in London, he had definitely expected her to train others, and he wrote, I'm very glad to learn your training program is going on. And the result is now men are trained for opening and maintaining new branches. This is very encouraging to me. And he also personally taught Jamuna and deity worship, and I was really pleased with that service because, when you can see there's one picture of her with Prabhupada during the installation of Radha Mandamishwara. So it was Jamuna who was essential in the deity worship. And he also appreciated her preaching. So when he wrote this letter, this was also in London, been there for a while, and I'm so glad to learn that you've defeated the 4 whips, they call it the 4 whips, of the Ramakrishna mission by doing quotation from Bhagavad Gita. If you carry on your service to Radha and Krishna according to the prescribed rules, your love for Krishna will increase more and more. This you'll receive practically by the grace of Krishna. Maybe not like 15 minutes of your time, but we all have this opportunity, let's not squander it, to become closer to Krishna and bring others closer to Krishna. And here we are, a little group of us in this city, greater Detroit area, I don't consider this Detroit, it's the area. And how many people are in some other place doing whatever they're doing. So thank you all for being here to glorify Krishna and serve our beautiful worships, run Gopijan and Balaram. And for those who have, one more thing, this was a good one. So on the occasion of Jamuna and her husband, Guridas takes sannyas, right? Prabhupada said, now he's Guru Das Swami. I got him married. His wife was also a great devotee, Yamuna. So now Yamuna has taken a nice path and she's become like sannyasini. Although there are no sannyasis for women, she has voluntarily taken. She's doing so nice. I advised her husband, you also take sannyas. She was an extremely humble person. You would not listen to, people trying to glorify her. She walked out of the room. But thank you all very much for tolerating me. Hare Krishna.
यमुना माई की, गंगा माई की, वृंदावन धाम की, ठाकुर धाम की, जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की, सुमेधा भक्त वृंदा की, ओ वरिष्ठ समुद्र ओ वरिष्ठ समुद्र ओ वरिष्ठ राम का